All right. Hello, everybody. How's it going? Happy Friday night for all of you guys. You guys can jump into the chat and post where you guys are coming from as we get started here. Let's see. You pop that chat open. Yeah, drop it in the chat where you're coming from, you guys.
It's so weird not seeing anybody.
Yeah, I know. It is so much more fun when you can like see face to face, but at least we got the chat box, so
We got Las Vegas. There you go.
yeah. Look at that.
We got the F1 stuff going on right now.
F1, what's that? Like Formula One racing?
Yeah. They
Okay.
like turned like a section of the strip into a racetrack. It's like
Seriously?
all screwed up right now, but it
That's
looks
crazy.
pretty cool.
I didn't know they did that. They also have that new big like orb, the big like what is it? Like a concert venue or something?
I think it's like an auditorium
Yeah.
inside, and then the outside's all LED lit. Yeah, they lost a ton of money on that.
But it's a long-term investment, hopefully.
But it's cool. So I mean,
Yeah.
Boston, Vermont, Bay Area, nice.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah, drop it in the chat where you guys are coming from, and we're just about to kick it off. Thanks for your guys' patience and whatnot. But yeah, cool.
now you're
I'll
stuck
go
with
ahead
me.
and yeah, I'll go ahead and get it kicked off and get it started and whatnot. I'm Zach Francis. It says Jason and Zach Francis. Jason's my brother, but I'm actually just Zach Francis. And yeah, we're the founders of tinyhouse.com, and we're trying to bring together the best of the best, the experts in all the different spaces inside of tiny houses. So
Couldn't
today,
get them, so they got me.
that's right. That's right. Today we're super thankful we got Nick Mosley, and he's going to be presenting all about tiny house financing. He's the owner of California Tiny House. He has been going at it strong for how many years now, Nick?
10 years.
10 years. That's crazy. Yeah. So 10 years, they've been basically some of the first in the industry building some really nice quality tiny homes, and they've figured it out. And Nick's done way more than just build tiny homes in the last 10 years. He's been a part of a lot of different, committees and boards to help kind of create the standards and the requirements of what it takes to be a tiny house, but also like modular homes and a lot of different things along those lines that I'm sure he's going to dive into, and even some new kind of special and very unique types of financing for tiny homes and tiny homes on wheels, but also just all around all the different structures that they build and whatnot. So, and then after that presentation about financing, he's going to jump right into Q&A about all things tiny homes, and Nick always crushes it with the Q&A, and he has been dedicated to be able to answer every last question. But he does have a pretty young baby, so I don't know if he's going to go until the wee hours of the night tonight, but
We'll
he
see.
can you never know how it goes. So, and I think even his brother Scott might be jumping on, so it's always a fun time getting to hang out with the Mosley brothers, because yeah, they're just a pleasure, and the way they banter is always enjoyable as well. So well, yeah, without further ado, I'm gonna let Nick take it away, talking all about tiny house financing, which is one of the most hottest topics inside of the tiny house space for sure. So Nick, let's let you go at it.
Cool,
Awesome.
man. I'm ready.
Good
Thanks,
stuff,
Zach.
dude. Thankful to have you on.
All right, brother. For
Talk to you
sure.
later.
See ya. All right. Tiny house financing. Quick disclaimer though. I am not a direct lender. I'm not an underwriter. So if you have really, really detailed questions about tiny house financing, I may not be able to answer that, but I know exactly who to refer you to. But I'm going to talk about kind of the past tiny house financing, where it's been going, where it's at now, and pretty much give you, in my opinion, anyways, the easiest way to finance a new or used tiny home. In fact, there's even options now to refinance a tiny home if you're already a tiny home owner. We'll talk about that too. Okay, diving right in. Also, if you guys say something in the chat, I don't have a second person here to read it necessarily if I'm talking, but if you have a question that you want to know, just keep on typing it. Eventually I'll get to it. So we'll do a quick, like, I don't know, 20 minutes, 30 minutes on financing, and then leave about 30 minutes for questions. Questions do not have to be about tiny house financing. I'm just going to say that right up front. You can literally ask me anything. I'm involved in tiny house on the education side with school districts, in every tiny house organization currently on the planet, and the building side of every type of tiny home known to man. I've been doing this a long time. Okay, so let's get into it real quick. Let's talk about the types of loans. Excuse me. So you've got basically like 5 ways to purchase a tiny home. You can do like a personal loan, which is go to a bank, get a personal loan, or there's online ones. I'll dive more into all of these in a second. You've got a home equity loan or home equity line of credit. If you guys have heard the term HELOC, just home equity line of credit. Talk more about that in a second too. You got a standard mortgage loan, which is fairly new. Last probably 5 years of the tiny home industry, people have been able to kind of get these. And then you've got an RV loan. Technically, most of movable tiny homes are considered RVs in the building code and in a lot of public sector's eyes. Even though they don't look like RVs, they still do apply for those type of loans. And then the fifth and final way to purchase a tiny home would be straight cash. Obviously, that's not financing, so we're not going to talk about that one. You guys all know, everyone knows how to buy something with cash here. So real quick, let's dive into a personal loan. What a personal loan is, where to get one, pros and cons about it. So there's a lot of great companies that do personal loans that people have used for years. If you've been interested in getting financing for a tiny home, you've probably heard of like Lightstream, SoFi. There's probably a dozen others now. One of the coolest parts of a personal loan is that you don't need a down payment to buy that tiny house. The personal loan is going to cover, the down payment plus up to a specific amount. Most of them go up to 100,000. You can actually increase that depending on your credit worthiness. And another pro to that is you get your title right away versus like a bank or an RV loan, even a lot of tiny house mortgages. They're going to carry the title to the house itself, and you're not going to be able to have it until you get it paid off. When is that really an issue? Not very often, but maybe you decide you want to sell your tiny home earlier. Having that title, basically the owner, the pink slip to the trailer and everything, is going to make it a little bit easier, quicker anyways, to sell. And some of the negative things about personal loans are you have typically, you can't say this for every single place, typically on average, you're going to have a higher interest rate though. It's an unsecured loan. So they're not using necessarily collateral like a house or a car or some type of asset. However, they're riskier loans because of that. Plus, you're in something that's movable. You can move around anywhere in the country or out of the country with them. So the interest rates are never going to be as good as they are in a mortgage. And the other con is typically personal loans are going to be a little bit shorter. The longest one that I've seen to date was like 12 years, which is not bad, but it's also not great when you're talking about a big sum of money. It means your payments monthly are going to be pretty high. Now, up until about 5 years ago, that's basically what anybody that was financing a tiny home was basically doing: personal loans, big personal loans, and just had higher payments, or they were putting more money down cash and then getting a personal loan to cover the rest. Home equity lines of credit or home equity loans. One of the pros is it's fairly simple to do. Usually it's a good way to it uses the home's value or assessed value to gain equity. You turn that to cash, and then you can purchase your house. One of the downsides, you have to already own a home. But if you do own a home, it's a great way because the interest rates are typically a little bit lower. They're going to use the house as an asset, which has its own ups and downs. One of the downs is that if you don't make your payments, there's a chance you could lose your home as well. So you want to be careful and make sure you choose something that you're comfortable with first and foremost, but then also something that your payment obligations are going to kind of match what you want. And we see a lot of more home equity lines of credit or home equity loans for people that are using the tiny home as like an Airbnb or as a permanent rental, where that money they're going to generate is going to offset and basically pay that loan back. Oh, excuse me. And then one of the other cons of a home equity line, or it could be a pro, it really depends on the amount of equity the house has. If your house only has 30,000 in equity right now, you're only going to be able to pull that much out. So you're not going to be able to buy maybe the $75,000 tiny home that you necessarily want. So you got to kind of factor that in. And I can touch more on all this stuff if you guys want. So just let me know. Mortgage loans. Like I mentioned, up until about 5 years ago, you could not get a mortgage on a tiny home. The reason being is that, technically speaking, it's personal property. It's on wheels. It can go from one place to another. So it's hard to set up roots within a lending institution of they know exactly where that house is going to be, where to get it if payments aren't made, just like they would if you had a traditional mortgage. But some companies are realizing that there's no options for tiny home owners or people that want to purchase them. And they found out that, hey, this is an empty space, a perfect market. And from my talks with a lot of these guys, that they're crushing it. They love these tiny home loans because so many more people are looking to downsize, or first-time home buyers are looking to actually find something that they can afford and feel that, pride of ownership. One of the best things about a tiny house mortgage is that most of them go up to 23 to 25 years. Some go up to 30 years, but usually that's if you're also purchasing land. There might be more out there that I don't know of. The specific ones that I'm talking about are like Liberty Bank does a excuse me, sorry, I got something in my throat. Liberty Bank does like up to 23 years last time I checked, and 21st Mortgage is going to do your 25-year. That's the company that we are a retailer for. So after all this, I'll talk about the process of which you get a loan through 21st. Frankly, I think it's pretty easy, but there are a lot of steps that it's not like buying a car. It's closer to buying a house. So we'll talk about that. Another cool thing about the tiny home mortgage is because of that 25-year or 23-year term, your payments are going to be less. And then the other cool thing is the interest rates on most of the mortgages follow the housing market. So, 10 years ago, 5 years ago, people were getting on average, through like Lightstream and some of these other personal loans, somewhere between 12 and 25%, almost like a credit card. I mean, for a house purchase, it was horrible, especially because the rates were like 4% then. It's only gotten better, in my opinion. The rates now are still somewhere bouncing around that housing market, 7.75 to 8%, 8.5%. It all depends on credit worthiness, obviously. But those are much, much better rates, plus a longer term. I mean, we have some clients that are putting like 10% down or $7,500 on a $75,000 house, and their payments are like under $500 a month. It's wild. That will depend on credit worthiness, obviously, and I've said that a lot, but most of these lending options that you have, they're looking for like over 550 credit score, not something crazy exorbitant. However, if you want the best rates, you're going to have to go to each one and see what their, credit rating is. I think it's like 750 or above is when you hit like the excellent credit mark, and that's when you usually trigger the lowest rates on any of these. But one of the cons to the mortgage, unlike a personal loan where you don't necessarily have to have money to put down, a mortgage requires 10 to 20%. You can get, if you have really good credit and you're also purchasing land at the same time, I've seen them go as low as 5%, but on average, it's going to be, you're looking at like 10 to 15%, or sorry, 10 to 20%. And then you got RV loans. RV loans is the last one that I'm going to talk about because I'm not going to talk about cash. They're relatively easy to acquire. Just about every single bank will give them. Rates are going to be probably a little bit higher than a mortgage, somewhere between like 10 and 15%. The terms on those are also going to be closer to that personal loan thing. Usually I've seen like 7 to 15 years. 15 years is like as good as it gets with an RV loan. There's some stipulations to RV loans though. One of them, and you have to literally check a box when getting an RV loan, stating that you are not living in the RV that you're purchasing. I don't know why every bank makes you sign that little waiver, but it is. So if you're, if you say, oh, I am going to live in this, I can guarantee that you will not get that RV loan. At least I've seen dozens of people get dropped. So that's one of the downsides. They don't want you to live in it. Obviously, if you're buying a tiny house, you're probably buying to live in it. So, you just have to kind of play that. And that's more of like a conscience thing. Collateral, when you're getting an RV loan, it's considered like a luxury loan. So they want collateral. Usually they're going to want to see, like a 401k or a house or, something that they can use to help you get that loan. I haven't seen a lot of them purely based on debt to income ratio. I'm not saying it's impossible, and if anybody here has got one, let me know. And then the last one will be cash. We're not going to mess with that. So typically, or at least I don't want to say typically, in the last 2 or 3 years, companies like Lightstream have been, I don't know, probably like 7.5% to, I don't know, 20%. That's going to be the personal loan style, like SoFi, Lightstream, those ones that I mentioned. And they usually go up to 100,000. I've yet to see anybody that's ever gotten the 7.5% interest rate from them. Sorry. That's better. I've yet to see anybody get the 7.5% interest rate from them. I don't know what kind of credit score you have to have, but I'm sure it's right up at the top. Most of what I've seen is between the 9 to 15%. I have seen people, however, get more than $100,000. It says on their website up to 100, but I think they're pretty flexible. That's going to depend on the debt to income stuff. 21st Mortgage, that's the company that we use. And like I mentioned, they go up to 25 years. You can get shorter terms if you're putting more money down and you just don't quite have enough to cover that last little bit. Maybe it's just the add-ons or something that you want. You can get shorter terms, or you might decide you want longer terms and pay just kind of pennies per month forever. One cool thing about 21st and most other like mortgage companies is you're allowed to include kind of extras into the loan. What I mean by that is you're almost guaranteed you're going to have delivery included. So instead of paying up front for delivery, which can get really expensive, let's put it that way, you are absorbing that into the loan. You're also absorbing the taxes. Tiny homes are personal property. A lot of places charge sales tax, unless it's a tax-free state. um, those can be absorbed into the loan itself. You can also add, decks and some of the, maybe you're adding your infrastructure for plumbing, electrical, and sewer on site. It's usually up to a certain point, like it's like an additional 25,000 or something that you can add in extras after the house. It's a case by case basis though, so don't hold me to a specific number. But it does provide a really cool option for people that want some infrastructure done because there's nothing there. They don't have 10 grand to shell out after they made their down payment. Absorb it in the loan. And like I said, they can also go up to like 30 years if you're doing a land and home. So I've done a ton of loans through 21st for just the house. I've never done a land and home one. So if you have a lot of questions about how the land process works, I don't have those answers. I could figure them out or put you in contact with the right person. But I don't have them. I don't know them off the top of my head, or at least I'm not comfortable talking about them. Okay. So any questions so far about the types of loans, how that works? Okay. Well, anyways, if I see them pop up, I'll answer them. Another thing to consider, and this is when you're going to approach a builder. Not every builder has the same financing opportunities as every other builder. For example, like 21st Mortgage won't necessarily work with every single builder. It usually has to be somebody that's has an established business. They've shown a positive track record for X amount of years. They pay their taxes, so more, I in my opinion, more legitimate businesses are going to be the ones that carry that kind of financing. Now, there's another interesting fact about 21st is you have to be a retailer in order to offer their financing. So you can't, if you go to a website of a builder that you really want and they've got a 21st Mortgage thing, it's surprising how many builders I see that use 21st as their, on their website or something. But I find out that they're not actually a registered retailer. So if you did end up going to them, you wouldn't be able to get that loan unless they did that registration process, which is extensive, but not overly difficult. Okay, so let's talk about kind of break down the application process. How I realize I've already done my 30 minutes, but I'll go through this quick and then I'll leave more time for questions and answers. Oh, Light Stream, Myra, Light, Light. Application process, real quick. So I have notes because I always forget. The first one you want to do is just the preparation phase. Prepare, set your budget, find out what a comfortable down payment is, and check your credit score. Now, you don't have to have like a special thing to check your credit score. If you want at this point, you could literally just go onto a website like mine or a builder that that is a registered retailer with like a 21st Mortgage, or go to Liberty Bank. Any of these banks that are offering, there's some other ones in California that offer some. I don't know. I know there's a few in Maine, and a few of my other builder friends use specific banks. I don't know the names of those, but I can get you a list if you're really interested. The to check your credit score, you can simply go and say, what can I apply for? And the bank will look up your credit score. So you don't have to like pay a service to get a credit check to do any of that. You might as well just go straight to the source of the lender that you want to use and say, what are my options here? Usually they'll find a way to work with you. It may not be exactly what you want, but I mean, it's worth a shot if that's the path that you want to go. Um, the next step, once you figure out kind of what you apply for, what you're going to be able to reasonably do with your, debt and or debt to income, collateral, cosigners, kind of figured out all that stuff, then the next step's easy. It's choosing a home. What home fits in your budget? Could you stretch it a little bit? Do you decide you want to step down a little bit on that home purchase price to get more of the infrastructure done on site, or maybe add a really cool deck? um that This is the home choosing process, which I mean, I say is easy because a lot of the people that offer these long-term financing are going to be the builders that have like ready built models or built to order models, something that's produced in a quicker amount of time versus like a full-blown custom. Not that we can't lend for those, but it is a much, much more difficult process because you have to, each custom that you do, you have to draw up an entire set of engineered plans, go through all that just to find out basically what the whole thing's going to cost. It gets very expensive, and then you still, because all that has to be submitted with the paperwork for the lending. So that, I'd say the 25-year stuff is probably closer to the model kind of structure. You're getting something, you're getting it really quick, and then it gets delivered and you start making payments a couple months later. Apply is the next step. So you found your home, you love it, you have kind of a game plan. Work with your builders. They're the retailers offering a lot of these financing, or they're going to work with a bank of your choosing. We're more than willing to kind of help you through this process of what fits your budget, what we can do for that, and then help you apply with those type of numbers in mind. Once you apply, you have to prepare some documents. It's going to ask for, W-2s and tax returns and specific stuff, like just like any other loan, you're going to have to provide documentation. I don't care what kind of loan it is. You're always, if there's no documentation, be wary of that loan, because it sounds like a sketchy kind of a thing. So get some documents ready. Just remember, it's going to be some type of proof of income. It's going to be some type of identification of who you are, and then maybe a few other items. Fairly simple stuff that most people have, I would imagine. And then once you apply, you're going to wait for approval. Once you get approval, there may be some temporary approval or some stipulation behind it. You may get a denial. In fact, I get a ton of people that apply for loans from our website and they get denied, and they got denied only because they put like a 9% down payment on their loan application instead of a 10. Everything else would have cleared through, but that extra, $1,500 that they cut off of it is what denied them. So in those situations, most companies, banks, mortgage company, they're going to do what's called a relook. They're going to, either reach out to the client, or they're going to give them like a little pamphlet that says, this is why you didn't get approved. Change these things and you're in. So everybody wants to work with you. Obviously, the mortgage company wants to work with you because they're going to get that interest, and they want to make money. And builders are going to work with you because we want the sale. So we're all here to help make this journey as easy as possible. So make sure you utilize that, use us. Some of the documents are like employment, residency, are you, identity, usually some type of like social, and then proof of income, usually tax returns, Schedule Ks, stuff like that. Now you're approved. You've got all your documents ready to go, and now you're into what I call like phase one. So phase one is you have your house. We've submitted your paperwork. It's got all the information of your house, the purchase price, the add-ons, all the stuff. You've submitted on your side the your identity, your proof of income, all that. It's all got approved now. And most companies are pretty cool because it's all online. So it's like a drag and drop into like a client portal. Um, I found it to be quite easy for the ones that I've done anyways. Now you're kind of at this point where you wait. Once all the document has been gone through and gone through the underwriters, it does its little loan origination. A lot of them have origination fees. 21st is not bad. Banks do it, lenders do it. Almost any type of mortgage or lending company is going to have some type of origination fee, which is basically a fee that you pay them up front, as part of your loan for them to process paperwork. And at this point, once we get the all clear, we set a delivery date. House gets delivered. We do what's called phase 2, which is a welcome call, explaining your loan. They usually ask you when you want to make your first payment. Do you want to make it on the 1st? Do you want to make it on the 7th, the 15th? So that way it works around your schedule. Some people want all their payments to come out on the 1st automatically. Other people want, have a kind of a schedule that they want to keep. What I found is 21st, anyways, the one that we use, works really well around that. And I've had a lot of happy customers so far. And then the last but not least is a delivery certificate. It comes, in like a DocuSign. Was the house delivered? Is it there on site? Basically as a verification. And then boom, it's done. If that process sounds really complicated, it's because I'm really bad at explaining things sometimes. But you're talking about roughly 3 weeks to a month. If the client is on top of it, meaning like you guys, it could be, as short as 2 weeks. It's not a very difficult process, but it is a lot of paperwork to gather. So if you're going through and that you're going to get approved, just start getting some of that together and you can expedite the process if you're in a rush to get a house. And once again, this falls into that. You're going to a company like us or some of the other big companies out there. We have in-stock units ready to go. They can be delivered in a week. Those are the perfect houses to finance because all of it's there. When you're doing a built to order, we have to put in VIN numbers of trailer we don't have. So it just takes a little bit more time. And then another cool thing is for people who want to do like a community or a group communal style living. They want to set up a place for their family, like a little compound, family, friends. Maybe they're an investor and they want to do a tiny house community. A lot of these banks and for example, 21st, once again, I've used them a lot, but once again, they're the most familiar to me. They'll do 4, sometimes 6 homes all on one loan. That can be with a single purchaser or with multiple co-signers. Now, the one downside to that is all the homes have to be the same model. They could be, blue or black or pink or gray. Colors don't matter to them, but it has to be the same model. It works really well for the investor types or people that want to start, like I said, like a little Airbnb or a family thing, and they want to put 4 of them on a property so that they have a house for, each of their kids, like Zach and, his brother. They got a million kids. Something like that could work for them. So I've talked for about 30 minutes. I can answer any question about financing, or sorry, I can't answer every question about financing, but I can do quite a few. I can also answer any other questions about anything else. If there's something specific that you want me to dive deeper in or cover a little bit more, I'm good to do that too. So I'm going to go back up so I can read some of these. Apologies for the time it takes. I'm gonna go back to Darren. Are there real estate specialists in the space? So if you're looking for land, they could. Okay. Um, so does any of this apply to mobile homes and prefab homes? Prefab homes and mobile homes are much easier to get loans from. Both of those, modulars and HUD or mobile homes, the new term is manufactured. Both of those, you can just go to any old mortgage company, any bank, 99.9% of them will loan for those items. Now, usually it comes with, are you like, if it's a mobile or manufactured tiny home, or just any manufactured home, I guess, there's a couple ways they do it because they can count as both personal property and real property, meaning they can remain on wheels and not pay property taxes, or they can be set on a permanent foundation, hooked up to utilities, and basically gain or lose equity. The big difference is, one, if you're buying a mobile or manufactured to put in a park, the loan for that is different than if you do a mobile that you're buying with land to put it on as a permanent foundation. Usually you're going to get the longer term if you do it with land, and they're going to use the land as the collateral. So it kind of helps you on the rates for both the percentage rate or the APR and also with a longer term. Now, the downside to that is the down payment's a lot larger because you're also including that land. So it has its ups and downs. And then modular homes or prefab or factory built, they're called different things throughout the country. Those you just go to a regular bank. Those are treated no different than a stick built home. So that applies whether you're doing an ADU or accessory dwelling unit or just a standalone house on a bare piece of land. What type of tiny home would be considered able to get tiny home loans versus RV loans? That's a good question. It's just about any tiny home, a movable one, so something on wheels, can get an RV loan. Just about any of them, because technically that's what they are. They're either a travel trailer or what's called a park model. Both RVs technically both apply for RV loans. Now, the homes that can get like a mortgage are going to be based off of the retailer that they work with. So like, Tumbleweed, myself, there's probably 100, builders out there that have Heirloom, I think, does it. There's a bunch of us builders that have been in business long enough and have a pretty solid track record that these mortgage companies feel comfortable working with versus the company that just started up yesterday. They have no idea if they're going to actually produce the house, if they're just going to take a down payment, and say that they are working with them. So those are where you're going to find the tiny home mortgage loans. It's usually going to be with a larger company. At least that's been my experience so far. And then you can also go to a bank. Usually a bank's going to want a rostered or a builder that's in the National Automotive Dealers Association or something. It's probably going to be, once again, an experienced builder. And I'm back at Myra, or Mira. I'm not sure which way to pronounce it, but can you list the names of the mortgage companies I work with in the chat? I can, but I don't want to. I'll spend too much time typing. But you can reach out to me. I'll give you guys my contact stuff at the company. You can ask me all the questions afterwards. But yeah, Lightstream, 21st, SoFi, Liberty Bank of Utah. There's a ton of Murphy's Bank here in California works well. Golden One Credit Union. Credit unions are going to typically be a better rate. And they're a little bit more flexible with those kind of kooky movable tiny house loans. But it's just going to depend on your area if you're using a local bank. What method finance company offers the quickest turnaround time from application to funding? The quickest turnaround time that I've seen is usually going to be like a personal loan. Because they're basing it off of just straight income. You know, it's debt to income ratio. They're going to look at your credit score and boom. I mean, usually they can fund you within a couple days. The downside to that is you might you might find a builder and you want a house built to order, right? So it's going to take a couple months. It might take 6 months. It depends on the builder. Some of them, it might be a week. Who knows? As soon as that personal loan hits your bank account, you're making payments. I mean, they're coming out no matter what. So if you're waiting 6 months, you might make 6 payments before your house even arrives at your door. Which may not be a problem for some people, but it's just extending more than you'd like. Maybe that's one of the downsides that I remember in the past is we're doing custom homes or something, but on a personal loan, the house takes 4 months to build and the person's paying every month while they wait, which is, I mean, it takes a long time to build a tiny house correctly. So you have to understand that could happen in that situation. And that was Susan's question, by the way. A list of main banks. Yeah, I can get you those. Also there's for Maine, I would call Corinne from Tiny House of Maine. I know she works with like specific banks. Plus she's a super awesome gal and builds some awesome houses. So you can absolutely reach out to her and she'd be probably the best person in Maine to talk to. Tiny Homes of Maine, Corinne. That's her name. Our score is 648. Liberty says they need 650. Are we close enough to apply? I mean, I probably would, depending on, there's three branches of like credit, and even if like I have like ones from Wells Fargo or whatever, like a credit wise thing on my phone, and it'll tell me my score. But then when I go to actually apply for something, I find out that it's 10 points higher because they average all three or some other thing. 648 is close enough to 650. I would absolutely apply. I don't see any reason not to. What if you own an RV park so your debt to income is skewed? If you own an RV park, what I would need a follow-up question on that, and it would be, how are you planning on, what's the purpose of the loan? Are you buying a unit to like rent out, like you want to put like a couple park models or something on it to use as income? Because they'll count that as potential income on the debt to income sheet. Basically what your projected, you got to be reasonable with it, because the underwriters will look it up. If you're buying any unit to use as a rental and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to get $50,000 a month for it, so you put your income inflated by 50 grand, they're going to deny you, because this is not reasonable. It doesn't make sense to them, because they do their research, trust me. So on Susan, on the RV park thing, just I have to get into that later, because there's a lot of follow-up questions for that. What type of funding do you recommend for schools trying to build tiny home? Well, schools are a little bit different. So most schools get like Perkins funding, which is essentially like government funded money coming in. This is Dez's question, by the way. They get a lot of like government funding money that comes in, so they don't typically have an issue. Every now and again, I found that they do. The reason I know a lot about schools is because I have a school program and I have schools all over the country building under the curriculum, and learning how to build homes, you know. So I mean, I haven't had an issue with a lot of them funding them because it's not very expensive. It's kind of like a DIY where they're built there. There's no labor involved. It's the not no no. There's plenty of labor involved. There's no labor charge or profit in that. So they're just buying raw materials and then building it, you know, as an educational project. The materials you can get for most like smaller homes could be under, I mean, could be under 30,000 bucks. You know, depending on what you do, you could build your own trailer and build your own cabinets and probably save some money. But most of like our school program ones, it's like 30 to 40,000 in materials. And so they buy them throughout the school year and it spreads out. There's also grants and all sorts of cool stuff for schools. What building companies do I recommend to purchase a tiny home that meet California Plus codes? Are you talking about like just tiny home building companies in California? California tiny house. I mean, that's me, but I always recommend myself because I love my product and I care about what I do. But there are some other good ones here in California, and I don't know that I don't know that I want to. Well, I'll let you ask Zach and his brother Jason about that one, so you get a less biased opinion. Okay. Ever come across cases where individuals with 0 to low credit scores securely approved for manufactured homes? I haven't, but I haven't been in the manufactured home loan business long enough. We got our home manufactured license this year, so I don't have, I'm not familiar with enough with the actual credit scores needed at this point in time. But I've seen people with some fairly low credit scores get approved. Their interest rates are just slightly higher. They still get the same terms, everything else. A lot of lending questions. You guys can ask me anything. It doesn't have to be lending, but if it is lending, I'll still answer them. Oh my God, there's 45 new messages. So do I recommend getting a lender first when figuring out what you can afford? And then choosing the home after. This was Soren's question. That's gonna depend. I mean, the one thing that I hate to see is somebody gets their heart set on a house that's $112,000. You know, they love this house. It's perfect. It's exactly what they want. But then they go, you know, and they're sold on it. They've already had the dream. They've pictured exactly what they're going to do with the house, and they're just sold in their heart. Then they go and they find out that they're only approved for 85,000. And so they can't afford to bridge that gap, maybe. And so it usually leads, at least what I've seen, it leads to kind of a like just you're defeated, you know, it's kind of ruined the whole thing for you. So I like the idea of approaching a lender, even if you just get pre-qualified to see, you know, what can I afford? You know, I usually say add 50 grand to whatever you want just to see what happens. You know, it doesn't hurt you if you're denied. Most of those credit checks they're doing are not the ones they're doing during underwriting. They're like super soft hit, you know. So it's not affecting your credit score necessarily. So I would recommend, if you're interested in financing, I would, you know, click one of those get pre-approved now type things on a legitimate website, not just on some backdoor thing, but legitimate website, find out what you can afford, and then shop within that budget. I think it works better, sets expectations up from the beginning, and a lot less hurt feelings. What kinds of options exist for financing for building your own? Financing the building of your own tiny home. The only the only financing that I found, like a bank, a mortgage, all the bigger, like lower terms, better rates, longer term loans, they will not do shells. They won't do them. It has to be a finished house. Um, I I would assume it's because if a lender defaulted or something, they know what they're getting, when it's a completed house and it hasn't been, done basically or finished by a client. I don't know the exact reason. I'm just guessing, but in my, it makes sense to me anyways. However, you can get a personal loan or a personal like a home equity line of credit. You can go just straight up and get a personal loan just for whatever you want from a bank. Anybody has that opportunity. They also have the opportunity to get a personal line of credit. It's usually pretty low, but maybe with that personal loan or personal line of credit, you can buy your materials and your stuff in phases. Get the outside dried in so that it's safe to, sit out in the rain and weather, and then, maybe pay it off as you're, slowly as you're finishing it. There's not really any good loans for shells, so just keep that in mind. But then I mean, even personal loans, then you're still paying, and then it's hard to save enough to finish the rest of the shell. Do builders build for specific states, like buy a home in California, but the home is going to Kentucky? No, Lizzie, if you're, so I'm in California. Yes, most of the houses that I build remain in California, at least west of Colorado. But if you came to a builder like me or somebody else in California, and you said, I want my home built to withstand the much harsher winters in Kentucky, or the higher wind, or whatever it is, most builders anywhere that they'll accommodate, unless they only build specific models. Not to pick on them because I have nothing against them, but like Tumbleweed, they have like a dedicated model. I think they do offer customs now, but for a while they were just, this is what you buy. If it works here, it works here. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But if you're going to just about any builder now, we'll kind of accommodate that. What building companies do you recommend to purchase a tiny home that meets Cal? Oh, I already read that one. Choose me. Do most cities allow zoning for tiny houses? Good question. No. And also, yes. Loaded question. Let me give you the short, like super short, brief answer. Tiny houses can be modular, they can be stick built, they can be on wheels. There's a lot of variations. Tiny house is more of a descriptive word, and not like one specific item. So, like, for example, I'll use California because I'm here and I know a lot more about it. There are dozens of cities now that allow for the units on wheels, mobile or manufactured ones, stick built, and modular. Like, we're so desperate for housing here, they will take any of the different types of tiny houses that are out there right now. And then others won't. Like, I'm in Fresno, California. In Fresno, we allow all of them, any of them, as an ADU anyways, and then everything but the movable as a single family residential, which means you can have a tiny house, a manufactured tiny house, which is exactly the same thing, but done to a different building code, stamped differently, and installed differently, and count to a normal size house. Once you put that single family residential tiny house, you can add a movable ADU or accessory dwelling unit in the back. But then that's Fresno. Clovis is a city right next to me, literally, like, right. I mean, we're touching. They do not allow for movables. You can put a movable manufactured one, but that's because they only accept a building code from HUD up. They don't accept the park model or the movable RV style ones. It's case by case. You kind of gotta ask your zoning officials. But what I found is that most of them are willing to work with everything. And then there's entire states like Maine and Texas is like a free for all. You can put one almost anywhere there. Arizona's pretty flexible. I mean, there's different states have different regulations. Okay. Oh my God, there's so many questions. Okay. Do you guys even remember that you asked some of these? I'm still at 5:30 in time wise. What company does multiple units on one loan? That's 21st Mortgage. A bank might also, but I doubt it. Is there setup necessary attachments to utilities once the tiny home after delivery? Um, I mean, every house has some type of setup, whatever it is. You know, if it's depending on if it's movable, manufactured, or a modular, they're all going to require water, sewer, power, and then probably like some of them will take gas too. It depends on not a lot. You don't see a ton of movables with well, they have propane, but yeah, usually that's those four utilities, and anywhere that it's legal to place them, they want them hooked up while they're on that site full time. They don't want you to have necessarily they don't want you to have like running off the grid on solar and then using composting toilets, even though they're really cool and they work extremely well. um Most municipalities want to regulate. It's not so much for money, those like utility connections. It's more for they know where like waste is going and they know that you're what type of water you're using. I know it sounds kind of invasive the way I'm saying it, but it's really is for a good cause, because a few bad apples using, doing it the wrong way can really screw up if screw it up for everyone. What are the best companies that you've had the best experiences with for lending or refinancing or building? I'm the best builder that I've ever experienced personally, but there are some really cool ones for lending. So far, I like 21st Mortgage. I've used them now for the last 2 years. It's sometimes it gets a little bit complicated and there's more paperwork than I like, but I feel comfortable doing it. I feel like my clients are getting, a better rate and better terms and overall are happier. I'm able to include stuff that I wasn't before. I found that it works very well. So, and they also, like I said, they also refinance. And I think Lightstream might no, I don't know if they do. I might be lying when I say that. Scratch that. Go back 15 seconds. VA and FHA eligible. The movable ones, as far as I know, are not eligible for the FHA loans or VA loans. I could be wrong because things change all the time, but last time I checked, they weren't. The same exact tiny house, the same style, the same size, could be also classified as a manufactured home or as a modular home. Both of those would apply for VA or FHA lending. So it's not like I said, it's not 5 years ago where they had movable tiny homes or tiny homes on wheels, and that's all the tiny homes you were offered. Now companies like myself and a handful of other builders in the country are building the exact same models, the same units on wheels, just as flexible, just as beautiful, but they meet more than one building code. So they give you guys opportunities for financing and placement that you wouldn't normally have with a traditional tiny home. Do you have any experience with financing in or for Canada? No. I apologize, but I don't. I probably can put you in contact with people that do, though. There's some awesome tiny house builders out there. I'm not familiar, and I would just be lying or making it up. So I'm gonna skip that one. Do the builders provide the certificate for RV? So yes, Lizzie. When you say the builders, I can only speak for myself because I don't know every other builder's like what type of licenses they have. So let's put it this way. We have our contractor's license, contractor B or a general contractor. We have a manufactured home license so we can build manufactured homes. We also have a vehicle manufacturer license for RVs and stuff. So we can do park model. Under my contractor license, I can do modular. And then under the manufactured home license, I can do the HUD units. If your builder doesn't have one or all three of those things, they may not be able to build and or offer the certificate that you want. So if they don't have like a vehicle manufacturer's license, they might just be buying a trailer, building a house on it, but then it might still be registered as an equipment trailer, which is technically the wrong way to do it. I don't know if that answered your question, but that's what I interpret it as. And there's 59 new messages. Okay. This is going to be a while. What type of foundation is required for a real estate loan? Usually it's going to be, well, that's also a loaded question. It depends where it is, what type of seismic activity. Foundations in California are going to differ from Montana. They're going to differ from Kentucky. They're going to differ from Florida. What I found that's the most universal is like a manufactured home or mobile home style, like helical pier that goes into the dirt, hooks up to the frame of the chassis. Some people pull the wheels off, some people don't. But I've seen that one get approved in more states and more municipalities than anything else so far. But it's also inexpensive. So there's probably other options that are just as good or maybe even better, but they probably cost more. Ba, 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 ba. One of the requirements for 21st mortgage to do a loan is that the home must be built and certified to ANSI 119.5, which can be done through various certification bodies. Yes, that's true. They also do HUD though as well. So, but it does have to be certified, inspected, and they check up on those items. Can you talk about property taxes and insurance? Kim, absolutely. So property taxes are only applicable if it's considered real property, a stick-built house, a modular house, or a mobile home that is basically sitting on a bare piece of land or in like a backyard, some type of residential setting versus like a park. Those, it's still personal property. A movable tiny house or like an RV style is also personal property, meaning that if you put those in your backyard, there's no property tax. There's sales tax because it's personal property, but no property tax, which is really important here in like California, where we have high property tax, school fees, which is like any district that you put a unit in, you have to pay additional fees as part of your property taxes. You have to usually include like additional parking and all sorts of different stuff. With movables and anything that's considered personal property, it kind of voids all those out. So you don't have any of those extra like fees and charges that you would normally have when you put in like a stick built unit. You also don't have environmental impact fees, which is also kind of cool, because typically tiny homes on wheels don't impact the environment. They're not putting a massive foundation in and running all sorts of crazy infrastructure to it. So that's nice. Property taxes. Yeah. So then if you put like something and permanently affix it to the ground, then that's when you start taking property tax into consideration. You also might have a reassessment overall of the entire property, which means if you have a unit or a house on a piece of land and you're paying really, really low property taxes because you bought it in 1970, now it's worth a lot more. If you reassess that property, you might end up paying way more in property tax because they're assessing it at the new value with that ADU or accessory unit on the back. Zach asked if we're HUD certified. Yes. Thank you, Zach. Buying a used tiny home is nearly impossible to finance. The only person that I know that does used tiny homes is 21st Mortgage. Once again, I know, but it's complicated because if you find a used unit on tiny house marketplace or tiny house listings, unless it's owned by a like a return or something to a builder, they're not going to be able to, like, I can't finance some random house that you found. Unfortunately, it just doesn't work that way. So it's rare. Yeah, it's really hard to finance a used home. Every now and again, like we'll have like a model home that we did. We do like these exhibits like Fresno and San Diego, and we'll take it around for like a year or two and show it off at some of these tiny house events. It's technically a used home. It gets financed as a used home, but it, like I said, it's something that we own. When applying for a tiny home loan with 21st Mortgage, do you typically apply through a specific retailer portal? If so, do you have any idea what builder and price range you're shopping for before you apply for the loan? So this is a great question. Yes, that would be correct. You're not going to go through well, I take that back. You can absolutely just go to 21st Mortgage, and it's not 21st Century, not 21st Century Mortgage, just 21st Mortgage. Do I have a thing? No, but oh yeah, that's their logo, 21st Mortgage. So you can go directly through their website. In fact, you can look up like their retailers online. Like you can go on their website and click on California, and you can scroll down and you'll see boop, California tiny house. We're right there. And that works state by state. So if you're in Texas and you want to see what retailer for tiny homes have this service, you can go. If they're not on that list and you're like, oh, I love this builder XYZ, I'm not going to put any names, but they're not on this list, it means they cannot lend through 21st. So back to the question. If you go to the website, it helps to go to the dealer or the retailer, the builder's website, find out houses that you like within that, and then apply through their site. The other cool thing is anytime you apply through a builder's site, it gives like us as a builder a heads up, like, hey, this is whoever applying for a loan. And then I can literally see if you got rejected and why, and it gives me options to reach out to you and help you. If you don't want to be reached out to, then just go through the regular company website. Otherwise, it helps us connect and help you, basically. Okay, where are we at here? Do I have recommendations for students trying to fund a tiny home build for a school project? Yes, reach out to me. I'll help you. That's to Des, by the way. If you're still on here, I don't know. We're already past our time. So, is this recorded? Yes, it does appear that it is. That's Darren. Oh, by the way, if I say your name and I say it and just butcher it and say it wrong, don't tear me apart because it's not my specialty. Okay, so if the tiny house is on wheels, you have to get an RV loan. No. This is where it's gonna get tricky. So while just about any tiny home on wheels could get an RV loan, there's more to it than that. So when you go to a bank, I'll just run you through the quick steps. You go to a bank, you're going to say, I want an RV loan for I'm going to use myself as an example. You want a RV loan for a California tiny house studio model, whatever. The bank is going to go, okay, great. They're going to type in their computer and they're going to pull up the National Automotive Dealer Association. That is, for short, the NADA. It is essentially the Kelly Blue Book for mobile homes, park models, RVs, coaches, buses, all sorts of boats. Anything that's not a car basically is going to be in those guides. And there's going to be a value attached to attached to a model. So the banks use those values in order to determine your loan. So if you say I want a loan for this, Studio 20, the value in the NADA is going to be like 56,000 or something. But you're asking for 85,000 in your loan. You're gonna have to prove what the difference is, where that $35,000 came from. You can say it's upgrades or whatever, but they might give you, they might decide, hey, we're gonna give you 75% of the perceived value from the start, from the beginning. And so you will get, I don't know, $37,000 or something. And then you're going to have to come up with the rest on your own. Usually RV loans are going to be 20 to 25%. That's what I've found for down payments. But you can also get a mortgage for a tiny house loan on a tiny house on wheels loan through specific retailers. So banks will loan for a home that they know won't stay in their state. Banks are tricky. Most banks, if you go to, I've seen more often than not, they do an RV loan. So they know that it could be moved anywhere. It's more of a high risk loan, so the interest rates are a little bit higher. And they're gonna usually pair it with some type of collateral. So I don't care where you go as long as you make your payments. Versus like a tiny house mortgage, they always need to know where the house is going. At least initially, just about every lender asks for an address, so they have some way of mailing you something or reaching out to you if they don't get a payment. But I think the mortgage ones are a little bit more kind of boxed in to, well, you can still move. We've had people get mortgages through us and then move 6 months later. And there was no issues. They weren't out of state, but I don't see why that makes any difference. They probably wouldn't want you to go like Mexico or like Canada or something if you bought it in the States. At least not without telling them. Veteran is that my dad? If not, then does a VA loan work for a larger tiny home / tiny mansion? It could, yeah. It just depends on the style of house that it is. Like I said, usually VA loans don't work for RVs. They might be, I could be wrong about that. I'm not a veteran, so I can't really answer that question completely. Come on, buy a home in one state and then move it to another. You could, yes. Sorry, I've got 67 new messages. I'm trying to go as fast as I can. The best way to finance a tiny DIY build, man, that's tough. I've seen people get construction loans for like more permanent style DIY, because you, as an individual, you can't DIY a modular unit. So like something that's you're going to move from site to site. You can't really DIY a HUD or manufactured unit because both of those require a specific license, a factory or plant inspection, and a handful of other things that like a quality assurance pamphlet and booklet. It's kind of a big thing, but you could potentially DIY a stick built, like built on the actual ground with a construction loan, and then working with your local municipality to do the inspections. As far as a movable goes, personal loans probably are going to be your best bet. Please provide a list of recommended builders and different types. Anybody who wants lists of builders or lists of stuff, I can absolutely help you. It's too much information and too long to talk right now. But one great resource is like Tiny Home Industry Association. I think they have like a builder map even on their website. I could be wrong, but I think they do. Any recommendations for insurance? What to include, what not to? I like strategic insurance, which is like tiny home dot insure or something. That's the like website. They're out of Colorado Springs. I have I don't know, 100 probably clients that use their insurance that seem reasonably priced to me. And it seems like they cover a lot of the things that are important to them. They do have an opt-in for like a mobility clause. Like if you are going to be moving it more often, you're also going to want like on-road insurance. Most tiny house dwellers do not move it as frequently as they plan, or maybe they plan to not move it at all. They just like the option. You're probably not going to want the extra, expense of paying for insurance of a house that's moving constantly. But I like them. There's also Mac, Foremost, MACK, I think it is, and then Foremost, FOREMOST. Both of those are other insurance companies. And then now I see like more like Farmers, and they're starting to actually kind of get into the game as far as insurance goes for movables. If it's a regular stick built house, a modular, or a manufactured, any single company will work. When joining your school program, do you provide the trailers, or do schools have to get them on their own? We have like full material lists, so any school I have like everything broke down into stuff. They can buy it themselves, they can buy it from me. We can drop ship an entire material set straight to their door, so that it's, everything down to every screw, staple, and piece of wire for any of those DIY kits, which would include the trailer and remote inspection, certification, all that stuff. How long do trailers last? Can you repair or change it when it gets old? Great question, Kim. The answer is yes. You can always repair just about anything. Typically though, tiny house trailers are built extremely strong compared to like a mobile home trailer or something that just pulls like a car around. They're designed specifically to carry the weight of a house. Now, the thing that you are going to have to maintain, and this is only at the time you decide to want to move it, are going to be the wheels and like the tires. Because if they get hit with a ton of wind or sand or snow or just direct sunlight for too long, they're going to wear down, even if it's parked and not moving. And if you guys have ever seen a car that sat for, 10 years, all the tires are flat, but it didn't run over a nail or anything. It's just air leaks over time. So there's considerations like that. But as far as the actual steel chassis of the trailer, I mean, you can see steel buildings that have, went through fires and all the steel is still standing, not like the steel framing, but like steel girders and stuff. They have a really, really high tolerance. The thing you'd be concerned about is like if you're like really, really humid coastal, you might want to check your nuts and bolts every so often to make sure they're not rusted, or swap them out to like a stainless steel or galvanized. Otherwise, that trailer is going to, the frame is going to last the lifetime. I mean, a serious lifetime. It's never going to have an issue. Depending on the trailer. Disclaimers. Um, is there an extra fee to the builder if I have my own plans? My guess would be yes. It's going to depend on the builder, but typically, so like the way that a lot of like tiny home designs and and stuff work, just same thing with like HUD and modular. You come up with an idea as a builder, and then it goes through a architectural drawing, three-dimensional CAD, and then engineering to make sure that it's safe. So if you're already, if you've already done that, all those steps, and you're coming in with a full set of plans, the weight balance is right and everything works, then a builder might not charge any extra because they're not having to do that extra type of work. But if they were me, I would probably do like a check and balance to make sure that it truly does all work. And so then you'd still be getting charged. It wouldn't be an extra fee. It would be the normal fee for a custom. Pre-made plans for a school. Yes. You just need to email me. I'll answer your questions later. Lots of options for the school program / DIY program. How many hours of sleep do I manage with a newborn? It's been pretty rough. That's why I have permanent bags under my eyes. Yeah, my wife and I just have been kind of passing her back and forth as we until we lose it, and then we sleep as long as we can. But she's good. Her name is Emerson, by the way. So a new little girl. I have a boy and 2 little girls now. I love them dearly. Please define park model. That's great. I get so used to these terms that I didn't even consider that somebody might not know what they are. So a park model is a park, also called a park trailer, depending on where you're at in the country. Some states call them different things. Essentially what it is just like an extra wide RV. So it still classifies as a recreational vehicle, just like a travel trailer. They are still designed to travel down a highway, but they're anything that's over 8'6". So anything that requires a commercial driver's license to pull, i.e. 9 feet wide, 10, 12, up to 14 feet wide, is going to be considered a park model. Why would anyone want that? Pound for pound, price wise, you get a little bit more with 10 wides, 12 wides. Once you get over 12 though, then you have way more shipping costs because that's the maximum for a highway. Then you need special permits versus, don't get me wrong, you need a permit for anything over 8'6", but it's like usually like under $50 for the day. It's not very expensive. And there's some states that don't even have it, like from me to like, I don't even know, Colorado, or if I'm going through Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, I'm still only paying $54 or $45 for California. The rest of those states don't have any. Most Midwest ones don't have them, and then you get back east and they get a little bit more. But a park model is just anything over 8'6" that is built to a slightly slightly increased complexity of a building code. One of them is like is travel trailers and tent trailers. So I mean, you don't have to have, there's no R value inspections, there's no framing inspections really, because you could have a pop-up trailer with no frame, like a tent basically. Whereas you go to a park model, now you're in the American National Standards building code. I don't want to get too in depth on any of this because I don't want to scare you guys away, but basically you're factoring in live loads and dead loads for roof values for wind, and using more like real windows. But yeah, it's a park model. When will this recording be available? I have no idea. That's a tinyhouse.com guys question. Most major insurance companies are starting to insure tiny homes. 21st Mortgage also offers insurance to most of their borrowers. Thank you. This is just perfect stuff to say. Exceptions are certain high-risk areas in Florida and California. I have customers that have insurance through 21st, and they got fire insurance, and they are in what I would imagine is a high risk fire area. Yeah, we also refer many to strategic. Yeah, I like strategic. I see like a lot of responses. Sorry, I'm trying to read through these, but I can see like your guys' responses to something that I said, except I'm just now getting there. And I have so many more questions. There's like 85 now. I'm just way too slow. Just went to a tiny house show, and 21st Mortgage is about 90% what builders are using. So Soren, keep in mind that make sure they're truly using them and not just saying it, because I actually found this out by making my mistake on my own, is that I'd assumed as a builder, this is like 3 or 4 years ago, that anybody could use them. And so I would tell people like, yeah, we can do, most of our customers use personal loans, but we can do these loans through 21st. Only until I went to do the first one did I realize that no, they're like, yeah, you're not even part of our retailer program, so we can't do it. And then of course immediately led me to get all the paperwork and go through that whole rigmarole. But now I am, and so I can. So double check. Even if they say they are, just double check. I'm not saying that the builders are liars, but they might be misinformed like I was, and not even know it yet. Here we are. Okay. These are a lot of, I'm trying to filter through all the stuff by just glancing, guys. So give me a sec. Oh, cool. Thank you for helping out, Salim. That's awesome. Okay. Soren, Lindsay. Yeah, Lindsay Wood is awesome. Tiny Home Lady. Check her out. Do I have any contacts? I'm just scrolling now to where I'm caught up. Any contacts in Spain? Ooh, man. I might. I can't remember where we've helped quite a few builders outside of the United States start up over the last 10 years, from Peru and Berlin and Belgium and God, a bunch of other places. I'd have to go back and look. I can't think of any right off the top of my head, but it's possible. Okay. I'm now caught up to 6:30. I might have skipped your question. If I did, you can feel free to enter it in now. Otherwise, I will going to bid everybody adieu and go home. Still at my shop right now, so anybody else, now's your chance. I do not have to go. You guys are all very welcome. All as always, I'm just here to help provide accurate tiny house information to the best of my ability, and whatever I can to help you guys out. Do you provide the trailer for schools when they join your program? It is not part of the initial package, the curriculum, I should say, Des, but there's an option to purchase it. So if you're, I can get a trailer anywhere in the country. Doesn't matter where. I just use different retailers, and they have like a version of my plans, and they put their own kind of twist on it. So like if you're Midwest, I'll use Trailer Made. I've got a builder out of like the Florida kind of area, one in Oregon and Washington, and then a couple local ones here in California. There are 4 questions in the Q&A section. Where's that? Oh, is that what were we all supposed to be using that? Okay. I have credit card debt from building my own house. Do you know of any companies that will create a mortgage for a NOAA certified house? I don't think the credit card debt from building from building your own house. What you might be able to do with something like that is to go through like I said, a mortgage company or even a bank, and you might be able to use the value of the house. You'd probably have to have the house assessed, and some type of report showing the current value of the home, and you might be able to use that as collateral and or leverage to get that loan, even though you have credit card debt. They might still use that, and you might be able to, once you get that, then be able to pull out equity, pay that credit card off, and boom, you're in. A lot of them, like I said, are going to be willing to work with you. Is there a real estate specialist in the space? I thought I answered that question. I already answered that one, so let me go to the next one. Considering buying, considerations for buying land for building a non-mobile tiny house. The biggest consideration that I've seen when looking for land and with the plan to purchase a built-on foundation tiny home is to factor in the price, or sorry, not price, factor in the square footage minimums. There's a lot of requirements depending on where you're at in the country. I mean, if you're in like Missouri or something like that, it might be a free for all. You could do whatever you want. Here in California, each county that we have has different regulations. So like Fresno, where I live, there's no size. As long as it's over 150 square feet, you can build it and it can be a home. But you have to have a garage that is like 400 square feet or something, which is totally ridiculous. In certain areas in California, the bare minimum that they allow you to build is 1,200 square feet. So building a tiny home on a bare piece of land in those areas is not feasible. It's impossible, because they won't approve your plan set if it doesn't meet their bare minimum requirement. So that'd be the only consideration that I would look into. Otherwise, most other states are fairly they're a lot easier. Let's put that way. Not all of them though. Can schools preview the tiny house plans in your program and or customize them as well? In the DIY program, there's like preview some slides and stuff as part of like our little package that we show on the site and stuff, but they can't, it's not like a full set of plans that they can preview. And then they can customize them, yes, but it's mostly cosmetic. So in order to have a pre-approved set of plans, you can't change any major engineering. Nothing that's going to throw off the weight balance, or make a huge glass wall on one side. That would have to be a full set of custom engineered plans in order to apply for that. Trying to ask you about customers with Social Security as income. Do you see them get loans? Yes, I do. I mean, like, we do a ton of housing for retirees, and maybe all of their income is Social Security. What it comes down to is they're going to look as, what's the debt? Is there any debt? If no, that's already a good start. And then, do you have the money to make the down payment? As long as your Social Security payments basically aren't completely swallowed up by your house payment, that's where your house, the size house and price of house is going to be determined. But yeah, we've seen people with Social Security as their only income get houses. Can schools buy the materials for the tiny house build for the school program from you? If so, what can they buy exactly? They can buy everything from us, and we can just drop it right on their doorstep. Or they can buy certain things, like, hey, I want to buy all the framing hardware, exterior roofing, and windows from you, because those are the things that I don't want to mess with. We can just add just those packages into the program. They can buy those, and then they can furnish the inside with whatever, maybe they get a better deal, or they're getting some type of recycled something. As long as it's not structural, like I said, if it's cosmetic, colors, certain materials, they're usually okay with it. Why are so many people building tiny homes, but there are so few places to park them? Deb, there's quite a few more places to park them than oh my God, you guys are asking questions. All right, let's do all the questions in the webinar chat, because I'm getting confused. You guys are gonna make me cross-eyed. There's quite a few places to park them. Depending on what state you're in. I mean, you could always park them in national parks, RV or mobile home parks. You can do backyards in probably like hundreds of areas now. And then there's even a lot of areas, especially in the Midwest and back east, that there's no regulation that says you can't park them on bare piece of land and live in them. So lots of stuff. Okay, last question from this Q&A thing, and then I'll go back to the other one real quick. I've been in a tiny home fanatic for about 10 years. Would like to find a new way of living and doing something on the cerebral side of tiny homes versus becoming a builder. That's just maybe this is from Kayla, maybe just direct message me or send me an email or something. I'll have you Zach, have you put my email or anything, or even my website? Just maybe just californiatinyhouse.com or caltiny.com. That way people can, there you go. Oh yeah, don't give them that one. Killing me, bro. That's right. If you do need to, if something's an emergency, you can use that email. There you go. That sales at caltiny.com. That's perfect. Okay, I'm going back to the other chat now because I'm getting confused here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody who said that. Already answered yours. Great. I meant, have you had customers approved for loans that have Social Security as income? Yes. What is the process for schools to sign up for your program? All you got to do is reach out to me. If you caught my email address that Zach posted by accident, you can use that. Otherwise, you can use the new one he sent, and you'll get to me either way. Following up on the Social Security question, what about customers getting approved who only have Social Security, disability income, or long-term disability? Maybe better to email or call. This is TG. I would say probably yes. Send me an email. I don't know the specific answer to that, but I do have a really cool rep for the mortgage company. I'd be more than willing to send it their way for you and get that answer for you. All right, we're coming up on the 2-hour mark. What do you guys thoughts? More questions? Keep going, or we're done. Either way. I'll let you. If I don't see anything in like the next minute, I'm waving bye to everyone. And also, where's my brother? Right? Where's that guy? Freaking turd didn't show up. Let the weekend begin. Yeah. Cheers. Do schools pay right away for the program? Well, I work off of purchase orders or outright payment. So as long as I have a PO from a school or a direct payment, they'll get access to the online portal to get into their program and start everything out. They'll get the material lists and et cetera, et cetera. Oh, or they do payments of some sort. I don't really have anything set up for payments. I'm sure there's some like I could partner with like a firm or something, but you're just going to end up spending a lot more money and it's just going to go to a lending company. Des, we should probably talk offline though. I'm sure there's a thing I can help you with. Yeah. I'm working with some nonprofit partners that I think are trying to help some schools out. And so it might be a good opportunity for you. Does Scott always no show? Pretty much. Freaking clown, dude. Can't ever trust your brother. But no, I do love him though, but not right now. Thank you guys. All right. Countdown. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. I'm out. Hope at least you got something from this. If you didn't, it was fun to see questions, some familiar names. Anyways, I appreciate you all, and feel free to reach out to me if you ever need me. Nick, California Tiny House, CaliforniaTinyHouse.com. All right, guys. Have a great weekend. And if I don't see you, have a great Thanksgiving. Bye.